your first match out of the WWF is a pretty big one, man. So you were right to make the move because all of a sudden you find yourself in this really big spot. You're in Amarillo, and it's for the NWA Western States Championship, which the NWA Western States was being run at the time by Blackjack Mulligan and Dick Murdoch. And lo and behold, you've got Captain Redneck, Dick Murdoch, in a 1-hour draw with that international title on the line. So Ted, Dick Murdoch, he was a great performer. You and I have talked about him a bunch here on the show.
It's like, and I personally, I love that guy. I mean, I'm telling you, he was one of the very best. And I mean, it was so easy for him. I mean, we'd be in the match and, we're having a serious match, right?
Mm-hmm.
As far as the fans are concerned, and everything. And he's cutting jokes. He's telling me jokes,
during the match.
Oh yeah. And then he would do something like, he said, okay, I'm gonna, duck the clothesline and turn around and drop kick me. So I drop kick him, and he goes down he takes the bump and he goes down on the mat, and he goes around in a circle. You ever see the Three Stooges?
Yep.
How the guy would, just go around in a circle?
Oh yeah.
Murdoch, in the middle of the match is doing that.
Oh my gosh.
Getting up and going, whoop, 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 whoop. Now the fans couldn't hear him, but oh my gosh. He was just, if he'd have been more serious, honestly, I tell you, if Dick had been more serious about it, you never knew which guy was going to show up. He could show up and be very, very serious, and then he'd just be in one of his moods and not. But if he'd have been solid all the time, I think they would have put the NWA World Heavyweight title on him.
I think pretty likely, yes.
So,
now,
he definitely had the talent.
I find this 1-hour Broadway with Murdoch to be especially interesting because you take a look at the guy, and he does not look like a guy who's traditionally in shape. You yourself were in good shape at the time, but now you've got to go an hour with this guy.
Yeah,
how do you manage it?
Nick, here he is. He's not horrible, but here's this guy. He's got great big wide shoulders, but he's got a gut on him like he's about to have a baby.
Yeah.
Anyway, but hey, just. Again, I learned so much from Dick Murdoch. It's just not funny.
I have to imagine that is it a bunch of rest holds during this match in order to kind of keep it going an hour with somebody who's maybe not in the best physical condition?
Well, I mean, it's you can't do an hour wrestling match and be doing high spot after high spot after higher. It's kind of like that's why it's kind of like I try to tell these young guys, it's professional wrestling. It's not professional hop, skip, and jump or trampoline time. It's wrestling. And so most wrestling is done on the mat. And so, and that's just, I don't know how, I don't think I think there's probably very few wrestlers today, active wrestlers, that could do an hour Broadway. Broadway meaning, nobody wins.
Yep, 1 hour to a draw.
1 hour. A dying art for sure. I don't think there's anybody in any of the. I don't think AEW, the current WWF. I don't think there's any of those guys that could go an hour. Maybe Cody. It's always establish the good guy and the bad guy. Who's who. The good guy, outmaneuvers the bad guy a couple of times or whatever. Maybe even the bad guy shows a little frustration, maybe, slapping the turnbuckle or something, and let's go at this again. And they lock up, but then eventually he does something to cheat. He does something underhanded and takes over and beats the baby face, the good guy, beats him down, but then he gets a hold. That you don't see that anymore. It's like, you don't just take the beat, you beat the guy down, then you get a hold. and they get the hold and oh gosh, I'm trying to think. I used to do a thing where I would get the guy down, and this is when I was a heel, and I would be, but I would be near the ropes, okay. And so the referee, I said, ref, watch his shoulders down. So the referee, he's down, he's looking at the guy's shoulders, and then I'm putting my foot up on the bottom rope
Mm-hmm.
and pressing it, and then when I do that, I tell the guy I'm working with, like, fight, scream, whatever you do, because the whatever that pressure was is supposed to be hurting anymore.
Yes.
It's just little things, little things, and that's it's telling that story, and oh my gosh.
There's entertaining ways to grab a hold. A lot of people think it's just like, okay, the guys are taking their breath. Nope, you can take your breath and find something like that, which is really entertaining.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's just a dying art. I'm sorry, but it is.